Today is another book review day, and it is my 8th book that I've read for the 2015 reading challenge. I will put a little link down below in the description box to explain what the challenge is about, but it's basically to read 52 books in a year, but each book comes from a different category. And this week my book has come from the category of a book set in a place that you've always wanted to visit, and somewhere that I've always wanted to go to, and hopefully one day I will, is to see the pyramids of Egypt. I know they're only blocks of sand and stone, but just the magnitude and the beauty of that just is amazing. So I would really like to go there. Also, when I was little, I used to want to be an archaeologist. That kind of changed. But my dream was to either find a new type of dinosaur that had never been discovered before, or a new Egyptian king's tomb. So although I don't want to find an Egyptian king or mummies or anything, I'd still quite like to go to Egypt. So I read a book set in Egypt. I can't remember how I found it. I think I just typed into Google novels set in Egypt, and this one sounded fairly interesting. So I have been reading Crocodile on the Sandbank, an Amelia Peabody murder mystery by Elizabeth Peters. So I will read you the blurb and then talk to you about the book. Emancipated and Forthright, Amelia Peabody, an indomitable product of the Victorian era, embarks on her first Egyptian adventure armed with unshakable self-confidence, a journal to record her thoughts, and a sturdy parasol. On her way there, Amelia rescues young Evelyn Barton Forbes, who has been ruined and abandoned on the streets of Rome by her callous lover, and takes her to Cairo as her companion. From there, the two women sail up the Nile into their biggest ever adventure. Arriving at an archaeological site run by the Emerson Brothers, the dashing Emerson and amiable Walter, Amelia discovers that their little party is increased by one, an ancient Egyptian mummy, that proves to be an alarming and decidedly lively example of the species. My silence kind of indicates my thoughts on this book. First of all, right here, I don't know if you can see that, an Amelia Peabody murder mystery. That would indicate that there is a murder in the book. There is no murder. Don't advertise yourself as a murder mystery if you don't contain a murder. So that's really frustrating. I'm reading through thinking, oh, who's going to die? Who's going to do it? No one dies. Second of all, not much else happens. It's set in the 1890s, and Amelia describes herself as middle-aged. She's 32. What does that make me then? If you're middle-aged at 32. So that's a little bit frustrating. I know that's how women were back then. If you weren't married by the time you were 18, you were a spinster on the shelf. But that kind of made me feel a bit, But she's a very forthright woman. She is independent and she does what she wants and she goes where she wants and she says what she wants. So in that respect, I did quite like her. And she finds Evelyn in Rome, and Evelyn has collapsed. And so Amelia takes her back to her hotel and feeds her and gets her back to health, and finds out that Evelyn had an Italian lover who jilted her once he found out that she wasn't going to inherit a fortune. And back in those days, that meant that you were a ruined woman because you'd had a relationship with a man outside of marriage. So Evelyn doesn't know what to do. Amelia says, well, I'm off to Egypt. Do you want to come with me? And she says, all right then. And they go to Egypt and they meet the Emerson brothers. Emerson, the elder brother, who is very much like Amelia. Very direct, very, I wouldn't say rude, but he says what he thinks, he speaks his mind. And then Walter, who seems like a nice guy. And Walter and Evelyn fall in love, and yeah. And Amelia and Emerson, the older brother, are always at loggerheads. Anyway, the two brothers are there and they are uncovering some artifacts and digging things up, and Amelia wants to join them. a group of local people find an Egyptian tomb that hadn't been uncovered before, and in there they find a mummy, and they remove the mummy and they look at all the artifacts, and it's all wonderful. And then the mummy goes missing, and in the night Amelia experiences some strange things going on. It's dark and creepy and she can't really see what's going on, but she thinks she sees this outline of the mummy. It doesn't have a face, it doesn't have any features, it's got brown wrapping and bandages, and she thinks she's going a bit mad because the mummy can't get up and walk, until she finds out that Evelyn also had the same experience and she thinks that she sees this mummy. And I'm so sorry, that is it really. This mummy just goes around causing havoc. Obviously it's not a dead Egyptian walking around, a mummy come to life. It's obviously a human that has put on the garb, and it's just trying to work out who it is and why they're doing it. And to be honest, it really wasn't that interesting. I persevered. This book did take me a lot longer to read than most novels. The chapters are really long. I get really frustrated with super long chapters because I always like to find a place to put my bookmark to go to sleep. And it was just so difficult, and I found myself plodding through, wishing the chapters away just so I could get to the end of a chapter, because a few times I stopped halfway through a chapter and I'd forgotten what was going on. So that's why it took me so long. Also, the story just isn't that interesting. The majority of this book, nothing happens, nothing's going on. There's no... When I say action, I don't mean car chases and all that kind of stuff, but there's just a lot of sitting around and having tea, and I know that's what people did in the 1890s, but oh, and then this is a book. This is the first book of a series, and here inside is a long list. I think there's 12, 18. There's 18 more books after this. How did a publisher get a book that is entitled Murder Mystery, read it and find there was no one murdered, and then think, oh, I'll sign this author and get them to write more murder mysteries that are as bad as this? I don't like to be negative about books, but I think if you're going to advertise, and I say it again, murder mystery, at least have one person die. Just, oh, I can't say that enough. And then to have 18 more books. I mean, the first book in the series should just grab you by the throat and say you need to read more about these characters and about what's going on. And then to write 18 more after this one where nobody dies. I was so disappointed by the end. No murder, no action. There's little bits in there that kind of made me chuckle and kind of go, no, that's quite funny. But not enough to recommend anybody to read this. It was interesting, the bits when she was talking about climbing through the pyramid, or climbing up the pyramids and going inside the tombs and things like that. That was quite interesting. But it was so few and far between. The interest wasn't held for the whole book. And like I said, I don't like being this negative about a book, but it was a struggle, and a really boring struggle. And I don't like using the word boring, but I really can't think of any other word to describe this book. I certainly will not be reading any of the other 18. I don't want to be expecting a murder to find that nobody dies and that the only thing that's going on is somebody's dressed up as a mummy and is scaring people. Yeah, I can't say any more really. So if you would like to hear any of my other book reviews, and I promise I have read some really good books, so please check my channel to see what other book reviews I've given. So please subscribe. I give out book reviews after every book that I've read. I also do some shameless self-promotion where I share my own writing, and occasionally I give writing advice. So if you're interested in the world of reading and writing, then please subscribe to my channel and have a good day, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.